President Biden fully endorsing Kamala Harris as the Democratic Party's presidential nominee after announcing over the weekend that he would bow out of the race. Biden's decision came after dozens of lawmakers and allies urged him to step aside for the sake of the party. The president did release that statement Sunday on X, saying that he would not seek re-election, but added that he would speak on the matter later on in the week. Some reports do indicate Biden will speak Wednesday. However, the White House has not confirmed a date or time for any of that. Once we do find out, we will pass that along to you at home. Do want to talk more about all of this, so let's bring in Dr. Mark Shanahan, an associate professor at the University of Surrey and an expert in American politics. As always, Dr. Shanahan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here. So first off, I do want to ask you your overall reaction, because for weeks upon weeks, we heard Biden say he was not going to bow out. He would be the Democratic nominee for president. And then yesterday, we do get that statement on X or Twitter, depending what you call it. And he says, I'm done. And then he eventually says, I'm endorsing Kamala Harris.
Yeah, it was a strange way to announce it. And I think perhaps it reflects that Biden is both more hurt and more angry than he would like to let on. Maybe he just wasn't in the position yesterday where he could get in front of a TV camera and sound magnanimous. This has been building for a long while. We've spoken about it in the last couple of weeks, that essentially since that first presidential debate, it's been a slow-moving train wreck, that every time that Biden tried to recover his position, maybe go on the attack against Trump, more things went wrong. And there is just an inevitability about declining competence through age. And while he may well still have all of the mental acuity he has always possessed, he can't present it. He is somebody who is seen as physically frail and suffering the effects of aging. Quite interesting now with him out of the picture. The old candidate is going to be Donald Trump.
And I saw a lot of that on Twitter just yesterday as folks were saying that Trump is now the oldest presidential nominee. So it's interesting to think about since, Biden is a few years older there. So we do know that Biden, in a follow-up tweet, did post that he fully endorses his Vice President Kamala Harris for president. It was fairly quick. Now, I know that she doesn't necessarily have that nomination. It's not promised to her or anything of that nature. But based on what you've seen, do you believe that she will be the Democratic nominee for president?
I think she's definitely the front runner. I would say that all of the wind is in her sails. All of the momentum is with her. Quite a few senior Democrats, the likes of Newsom and Buttigieg, have already pledged support to her and are falling in behind that line. So what it does seem is that Biden still has a role as kingmaker or queenmaker in putting forward a candidate who the party will hope can go unopposed to the convention in a few weeks' time. And there is a fairly smooth transition of support. Biden's delegates will get to repledge. He hasn't formally stood them down yet, but that will happen. And it would be far easier if there was this smooth transition to Harris than if there was any kind of contest, which might bring in several other people, might take a lot longer to happen, might even lead to a floor fight in Chicago. And if that happens, it is going to look like the party is in disarray.
I want to talk a little bit about the possibilities here for a VP pick if Kamala Harris is the nominee for president for the Democrats, because it seems as though Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is almost coming out as the front runner right now. His name not really thrown around too often. I know who he is because I lived in Kentucky for several years there, but he's not necessarily super well known. Anyone else that kind of jumps into your mind that could be a possible VP pick?
Well, I would stick with Beshear. I think he is definitely one of the front runners, and not least because he fought and won against a guy called Matt Bevin, who was a very Trumpy Kentucky governor. And so he has experience in that kind of fight. The other one that obviously jumps to mind is Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. If you're looking for a real matchup of vice presidential candidates, Shapiro against Vance is actually quite a good matchup there. The other one, if the Democrats need money, perhaps to go up against Elon Musk's 40 million a month or whatever he says he's putting into the Trump campaign, J.B. Pritzker from Illinois. Here is an independently wealthy candidate who has been getting some national profile as well. So what I would say, it is almost certainly going to be a man. It's probably going to be a man from the Midwest. And with those three, and maybe Mayor Pete Buttigieg as a fourth option, you have got some relatively strong vice presidential candidate picks.
Is this the latest that a sitting president has actually dropped out of the race for president? Because I know I'm seeing a lot of records that have essentially been shattered politically over the last maybe several weeks, months, and years here.
Yeah, I mean, incumbent presidents don't drop out of races. So if you're thinking back to 1968, LBJ, he was gone by the end of March. So this is much, much later in the cycle. It makes it more difficult in some ways, but Harris has national recognition anyway, and possibly is more reinvigorating to the Democrat campaign and can give it a boost over a fairly short time scale. If it's a different candidate, it becomes a lot harder.
One thing that's interesting is once Biden did officially endorse Harris, Trump actually came out on Truth Social and said that he feels more confident about beating Harris than he did about Biden. What do you make of his statement overall, and really his statements that he made after that decision?
He made a lot of statements yesterday. After that first one, really didn't mention Harris at all. For Trump, it has to be all about him. I mean, this is what we've had since he came down the escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. He has to be the story. He becomes the center of attention and everybody else reacts to him. He won't have liked it at all that the spotlight has not been on him for the last 24 hours, and he wants to get himself back into that space so that others are reacting to his noise and his news. Biden was the candidate he was increasingly confident of beating. He talks a good game. He will certainly talk up his chances. He is actually still the favorite against Harris, but it's a very different challenge. Assuming it's her, he's going to be the older candidate. She has 20 years on him. Suddenly he is going to be a bit more exposed for what he says and how he says it, and people are going to pick on his age.
We already kind of touched on this, but are there going to be any effects of this that are felt at the DNC? Because as you mentioned, it could potentially be a little more, I don't know if you want to say there could be turmoil, but could we actually see this kind of switch up the DNC and how it plays out there in Chicago?
I think so. I think if things go to plan and we don't have a rogue candidate stepping in, and I know our friend in West Virginia might be that rogue candidate stepping in, but if this goes to plan, there is an anointed candidate who turns up, who gets that support that was initially pledged to Biden, it's a fantastic opportunity. It will re-engage a lot of younger people. It's going to re-engage a lot of women voters. Those suburban women that Trump needs to win now have an alternative candidate who they can take very, very seriously. Big issues such as women's reproductive rights are going to move way higher on the agenda. And that could really galvanize a short, sharp, potentially effective campaign.
We've seen reaction that has poured in from across the world, whether you're talking about allies of the U.S., enemies of the U.S. I do want to talk about you because you're over in the U.K. What has the reaction been there to this whole situation?
So there's been a lot of worry and concern in the UK about what's been happening with Biden. There is quite a fear in large parts of Western Europe, although not so much in newly nationalist France or Viktor Orban's Hungary, for instance. about a Trump presidency. There are still parts of Europe that would really like a Trump presidency. The UK probably, particularly with our new government, is more aligned with the Democrats. What all of the leaders in Western Europe, my area of the world, really want is safety and security and stability. And they tend to see Biden, Harris, whoever it may be, offering more than that than Trump, and particularly the very isolationist Vance. So Vance was considerably seen as a worry when he came onto the ticket. Now there is a bit more balance, even though there is probably a feeling that Trump is still in the lead.
All right, Dr. Mark Shanahan, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and break it all down. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, let's just consider the Harris potential presidency, if that was ever to happen. The first woman, and a woman of color, in a conservative, small c conservative country that as recently as 2016 was not prepared for a female president. This could, and it's maybe a slightly longer shot than one would think, but it could really usher in a new age of politics for the United States.
All right, Mark, thank you again for taking the time to be here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.